My name is Greta Rodney Thompson, and this is my poem, My Mother's Tongue. My mother's tongue is trop de piment. It is broad and rough, yet comfortingly tough, like a boiling soup, hot to the touch, and a melody of textures. It's just so much. Or you wouldn't understand. The perfect curved lips of the Monsieur, Docteur, and the rolling R of the bread. This tongue can do what mine cannot. Lash you into obedience and love with no words. My tongue is hesitant to speak. Will it be the southern drawl of y'all or the songs hiding when I say I ain't? My tongue is St. Martin born and American trained. My tongue wins the you speak so clearly. Your English is really good. My tongue struggles to roll and twist and turn foreign vowels. Cinq ou cinq. My tongue yearns for the warmth of home. But when the buttons are loose and there's nothing to lose, she is free to speak and free to roam. My mother's tongue is proud of my own. She thinks she could never do what I do. That's what she thinks, but I know is not true. While I admire her charismatic ease to switch among multiple tongues, she admires this obedient student. She says it's from my father. The British Islands, they good on the English boy. She thinks her tongue is broken, but I think it's so strong. She thinks she's misspoken, but I say that she's wrong. I wish I could bring her tongue along. On those times when I want this puzzle piece to fit, I know that I belong, but sometimes I just want to sound like it. She thinks I'm a star because I earned my degrees. She thinks I'm great because I'm what she didn't get to be. My mother's tongue is Colombian, French soiled, and I find it so cool. She learned from the Methodist Church and the community what she didn't learn in school. She learned survival. She's the product of this community. She has the heart of St. Martin in her tongue, and the heart of her is within me. At the peak of emotions, your truth will be spoken, and I will always speak my mother's tongue. Thank you. Well, hello everyone. I hope you enjoyed listening to my poem, My Mother's Tongue. This one is dedicated to my mother, Molly Josiane Thompson, especially for celebration of Fête des Mères, and also to all the mothers out there who pass on their culture to their children. It's also special because it's also the launching of my podcast, The Linguistic Isle, which is going to be a podcast about language. It can go in a lot of different directions, but the theme will always be language and the Caribbean. So, with that in mind, let's learn a few terms about language. First of all, what is language? Language is a system of communication with established symbols and rule-governed structures. Language can change over time. If you think about Old English in comparison to the way we speak English now, we can see that language has changed and evolved, and there's a lot of explanations for that. Our second term, mother tongue. That expression was used a lot in the poem. What is your mother tongue? Well, that's the language that you get from your mother, because how do we learn languages? Children don't go into a classroom and be taught how to speak the language. They pick it up from the people that they are around, and the person who gives them the most care and they spend the most time around is their mother. So your mother is usually the first language example. So the language that your mother speaks is usually your first language and thus your mother tongue. Dialect. A dialect is any variety of a language shared by a group of speakers. Fun fact, do you know on Wikipedia they consider St. Martin English part of the Virgin Islands Creole? This dialect spoken in the Virgin Islands, US and BVI, Saba, St. Martin, and Statia. I thought that was interesting, as I have noted that there are lots of similarities in the way that we speak, but I thought it was interesting that it's called Virgin Islands Creole. So that becomes a dialect because there's a group of speakers that speak the language of English, but in a different way with certain varieties or rules or a sound that is quite similar. Another almost similar word is a Creole. A Creole is now becomes a fully new language that has developed as a result of contact between two groups that do not know each other's language. So out of survival, one group speaks one language, another group speaks another language, and it gets merged together and forms this new language called a Creole. In the past, a lot of times would say that the Creole of that language was like of a lower standard, but now linguists believe it's just a different language because it has adapted its own rules and its own structure. Our fifth and final language word for today is code switching, something that many of us in the Caribbean have to do. This is the process of varying between two or more languages. So this can actually mean a language if you speak two. So you could be speaking in English, somebody comes in the room, you switch to French, you switch back to English. Children do this if they're bilingual. But also if you speak in Creole or a dialect specifically, you could be speaking your English, but the way you're going to speak it to one group, maybe because that person has authority, you're going to speak a more standardized version. But when your friend comes, you automatically change and speak your more colloquial, comfortable form of the language. So then that means you just did a code switch. So this happens all over the world where groups have dialect speakers. When they get together, they switch to speak in the form that is the most non-formal, most comfortable. Okay, guys, so that is your language lesson, your vocabulary for today. In the next episode, I will be sharing my language story, and there will be more to come on the Linguistic Isle podcast. See you next time. Ciao.